Hello and welcome to third episode of Divine Direction. I hope you have been enjoying the last two episodes, and this is really a very interesting chapter that I would like you to look into. The chapter 2nd and the first 8 verses. It's really so interesting and a lot of beautiful things can be learned from this chapter, which I'm really excited to share with you today. In the previous episodes, I was just sharing how Nehemiah had a love and concern for his people, which then developed into a burden, knowing the need of his people. And now, after he prays for 4 months, waiting patiently in the feet of God, he doesn't stop there. Many times, we pray, and then we leave. We just leave it. We think someone else will do the job. We don't take the responsibility upon ourselves. But here, God inspired him that he should rise up and he should take up the stand. And there's a huge responsibility on his shoulder now. And he gets a vision from God. And the vision is to rebuild the wall of Jerusalem. The walls of Jerusalem has to be rebuilt, and he is committing himself. So now the burden is now transformed into a vision, and he has a clarity now what to do, how to do, and then he gets plan as he is praying. And now it's a time to approach the king and ask for his permission. There's a beautiful saying which says, "He who kneels before God can stand before man." I will repeat that. He who kneels before God can stand before man. That is really true in this incident. He's not talking to an ordinary king. If you look at the history, this king Artaxerxes, the king is a ruler for 127 countries. Imagine, he's such a powerful king. Ruler of 127 countries. And one line of thought says that this is the same king who stopped the rebuilding work in the city of Jerusalem, as mentioned in Ezra chapter 4 verse 21 and 22. But it's not very sure because there were different king with the same name, Artaxerxes, 1, 2, 3 and so on. So it's not very sure. There is one line of thought. If that is true, it would have been more difficult because once a king stops a work, it's an official order. And now he goes to revoke that order, which is not easy. He can be executed, killed. So that is how the seriousness of this issue is. Doesn't matter if he is the same king mentioned in Ezra or the different king, but what matters more is he's a king or the ruler for 127, powerful ruler. It's not easy to go and talk to him asking for a permission. And there we see the king asks a question. Verse 3, "I said to the king, let the king live forever. Why should not my face be sad when the city, the place of my father's graves, lie in ruins, and its gates have been destroyed by fire?" Then the king said to me, "What are you requesting?" So I prayed to the God of heaven, and I said to the king, "If it pleases the king, and if your servant has found favor in your sight, that you may send me to Judah, to the city of my father's grave, that I may rebuild." There's a very beautiful line hidden in between these two verses. When the king says, "What are you requesting?" the immediately other line says, "So I prayed to the God of heaven, and then I replied." So he is not just looking at the king, but he is looking at the King of Kings, who is more mighty than any ruler on this earth. His eyes are focused on him. His confidence is on him, the King of Kings. And that gives him the boldness to go and speak to the king. The moment king asks, he makes a silent prayer to the God of the heaven, the King of Kings. And then he replies. And there we see the God of heaven, the King of kings. He turns the heart of the king and then he grants. There are 3 requests that he keeps. Very interesting. The first request is that he wanted to go. He wanted to be sent to Judah to rebuild. The second is, let the letters be given me to the governors of the province beyond the river, that they may let me pass through until I come to Judah. And another one letter to Asaph, the keeper of the king's forest, that he may give me timbers to make beams for the gates of the fortress of the temple, and for the walls of the city, and for the house that I shall occupy. And the 8th verse ends like this. And the king granted me what I asked, for the good hand of God was upon me. The good hand of God was upon me. The favor of God was upon me, in other words. So he realizes the favor of God. So when we pray, when we wait in the presence of God, God gives us the vision, clarity, and he gives us the right time. He opens the hearts of the king. The doors are opened and his favor is upon us. So when we take the step in faith, God's hand is upon us. He did not stop just in prayer. Oh Lord, build the gates, build the walls. He didn't stop there. Prayer with action. Prayer followed by action. If there is a vision and no action, it's just an ambition. It will never fulfill. Vision without action will only be an ambition. Many people, they have the vision, but they don't act. And it just remains an ambition in their life. So here we see he acts with boldness and confidence on the King of Kings. And one more thing that we see here is, that is again very important. If we read verse 2, and the king said to me, why is your face sad? Seeing you are not sick, this is nothing but sadness of the heart. Then I was very much afraid. I said to the king, let the king live forever. Why should not my face be sad, when the city of the place of my father's grave lie in ruins and his gates have been destroyed by fire? Can you believe a king looking at an ordinary cupbearer and asking, why is your face sad? What happened to you? It's sad. You are saddened in your heart. How am I in my place of work? Can people see the joy in our face, joy in my work? So, in this verse, one thing is revealed very clearly, that Nehemiah always had the joy of God in him. He was very peaceful. He had a smile. He had a joy in his face. He was never sad with his personal and all the silly worries around him. He was not bothered because he was a prayerful man, a godly man. He was not worried about all the situation around him. But one thing that made him really worry was his city in ruins. The burden, the vision, that was the only thing which affected his face, his joy. And there we see king is able to differentiate him. Do people around us see the joy of God in our life? When we talk about peace and love and joy to the people around, do we really experience that? Many times we are lost in all the silly issues that is around us, in our personal conflicts, problems around us. We fail to understand the vision. We fail to carry that burden in prayer and move forward. But here Nehemiah was always joyful. It highlights his testimony in his workplace. That credibility has to be earned. Many times we blame our superior, we blame the people around us that they don't allow us, they don't permit us, they don't give us the responsibility or any authority, we need to also analyze ourselves. Am I credible enough? Is my testimony good? Only when I earn, credibility is something which has to be earned. Testimony is very important in our workplace. When I go and ask, more than my words, my testimony speaks. My credibility speaks. So here the king is really touched because it is the same Nehemiah who is always joyful and who carried God's presence. I remember during the 2015, the Polytechnic construction was, the first floor was almost over. The second floor was still under construction. Lot of work had to be done. We didn't have the tar road in the front. It was fully with concrete material, stone, sand. Approach road was not proper. And then electrical wiring was not done. And not a single document was ready for the approval. But one day, suddenly, our chairman, respected Agustin Jabakumar uncle, he came and he shared that we are going to apply for approval this year. It was 2015. Most of us, we thought that maybe we are not going to have approval this year because the work is not completed. Maybe next year, looking at the situation around. But he said, no, we are going this year itself. We knew one thing, that uncle would never take a decision without prayer. So he would have definitely prayed and taken this step. So with his word, we move forward. It was not easy. We had to get 30 approvals from different government office, and the time was just limited, 1 month left. Construction work had to be done. All the equipments, lab equipments had to be purchased. Can you imagine? That 1 month was really hectic. Everyone who were involved were on war foot. They were running around doing their best. But our only hope was, this was a divine direction from our leader who received the word from God of heaven. Many people said it's impossible. That year, even some of the government colleges did not get approval. Private colleges could not get approval. But miraculously, we had 3 rounds, 3 chances. We were rejected first time, second time for a very silly reason. But third time from Kanpur, we were shifted to Delhi for the final round. And there we found the favor of God. Just like how Nehemiah shared, we found the favor of God in the authority. And we were the first college in that year to get approval from Bihar. And the story goes on, as you know very well. And after that, how are we going to get staff? It is already too late. How are we going to get the students? It's already too late. But it is really amazing to recall those days and to thank God the way God brought dedicated people. God brought a wonderful set of students in the first batch. And those staff, the first batch, the staff who joined, most of them are still working today in this institution, many of them. And most of them are holding a very high position. And they were the people who slogged, who worked together, who were willing to take any load upon themselves. It was a pioneering work, a lot of responsibility had to be shared. We didn't have so many staffs because our income was limited. Lot of restriction, facilities were very less. In spite of all that, they took lot of pain upon themselves joyfully. The beauty is, they never grumbled, murmured. They joyfully served. And it is a teamwork. All the staff during those days, really, I cannot forget those days, how they involved. And today, it's a result of the teamwork and the effort that everyone put, because they did it joyfully. And I really thank God that word, divine directed word through our chairman, it never went in vain. It happened. It was fulfilled. Similarly, again in 2017, we had to go for approval of an additional department. We planned to go for computer science branch. The SPT had approved. And once SBT, the state government approved, we happily announced it to all the students, and many students were admitted. But suddenly a letter comes from AICT that only 4 branches were approved, computer science was not approved. We approached the private association, we approached the Kanpur AICT office and all those places. They all said it's impossible, it is not at all possible. What are we going to tell the students who are already admitted? It was really a confusing situation. Again, we went to our leader, our chairman uncle, and he prayed and he said, go to Delhi. Anyway, God will open some door. Just holding on to that promise from God through our leader, we went. Myself and Robin, we went there. I still can recall there was a lot of fear inside us. We were praying, sitting outside the AICT headquarters office. We were sitting in the sofa, we were praying even before meeting the main person. We prayed and we went. It was really amazing the way God turned the heart of the leader there. And she said, this is a very rare case. Never do we revoke once we give them a letter, but this is the first time we will think about it. And miraculously, within 2 weeks, we got a corrigendum report and the computer science branch was added. This shows the favor of God in our institution. And it is purely the hand of God that we have come thus far. Just like we read in Nehemiah, it is not because of our skill, our talent, our knowledge. It's because of the favor of God. Of course, that doesn't mean we can be as we want, do as we want. Credibility is important, testimony is important. Nehemiah did his part. He had a very good testimony. Along with that, the God's favor was upon him. So there is sovereignty of God and responsibility of man. My responsibility, when I do properly, God's hand will be upon me, and then I will have success. I will see doors opening for me. And then, even it might be a difficult door, you may think it is not possible, but God can open that doors also. So I want to encourage all my dear faculties. You may have a vision for your department, for this institution, for your students, for your hostel, for your mess. You may have a vision. Continue to do your work sincerely. Continue to work hard. Never give up. Your credibility, your testimony will speak louder, and you will see the favor of God, and that will help you to accomplish your vision in this place. Vision without action will only be an ambition. If you kneel before God, you can stand before man. So I want to encourage all my dear leaders in this institution that you continue to have that passion, to have the vision clear, so that you can achieve greater things in this place for God's glory and for the growth of this institution. May God bless you. Have a great day.